All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in tonight. This is the Young Guns podcast. Got Jacob here with us tonight. How's it going, Jacob?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing great. Thanks for coming. Kind of a slow night for panelists, but that's all right. Just like to give a shout out to gunchannels.com. You can check our channel out on there and follow us. We try to do chats every Sunday night, 8 p.m. So big thanks to those guys over there. And you can find all the hangouts also on the YouTube side of things, which is where this is being broadcast from through YouTube and Google Plus. And so tonight, before we get into our topic, we're going to just go through like we normally do and say what's up, what's new with us, what we've been up to. So, Jacob, what have you been up to as far as shooting goes, past week or so?
As far as shooting goes, I've been doing more practice with the Remington 700. I'm getting down to about 1 inch groups, maybe a little bit under, with just basic reloads. So that's a big improvement. And then I finally got a Glock 17L, and probably gonna go shoot that tomorrow. So I'm pretty excited to do that.
Nice. That sounds like a lot of fun. 17Ls are pretty hard to come by. You don't see a lot of them anymore.
Yeah, when I picked it up from the FFL that I had it transferred to, when was that, on Friday?
hmm
It was the first time I had ever seen one, and that was after working at a gun store for 2 years and then just going to stores in town for the past 3 or 4 years. I had never seen one in person, so it was a neat experience.
Yeah, I think I've seen two, and one was a Zev Tech. It was all tricked out. But anyways, pretty much for me, what I've been doing, I know I talked about this before, how I was just getting into reloading 40 caliber and everything, and I finally shot my 40 cal Glock yesterday, and I did a comparison with it. The 9mm, I was just doing some drills and stuff. Pretty much, I've decided that it's really not much different at all as far as my speed and everything. In fact, I
Oh,
actually
nice.
like it's with a regular grip, the recoil impulse is actually a little bit nicer to me, and I actually shot pretty accurately with it, no different. The only thing I did notice was that shooting weak-handed, it was a little harder for me to control it, and it kind of, a little rough on my hand, but I'm just going to build up my wrist strength and all that, and that'll just come in time, so I'm not too worried about it. And so I'm really excited about shooting 40. I'm going to be shooting a match this Saturday. It'll be my first time shooting major power factor. So that's pretty much it. That, and like I said, I've been working on grip strength. In fact, I'll show you guys these grip products I got. They just call them hand trainers, I think. I don't have the package for them. I got
All
them
right,
on
is it a
Amazon.
black? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and pretty much what it is. They're $30 for a set of three, so you get three of them. The other one's laying over there. And the weakest set's 100, 150, and 200 pounds. I don't know if it's actually like poundage, or if that's just like spring tension.
Yeah.
But this is the 100, and I can do it pretty easy now. And I've been working up. And the package says you want to do it's better to do less reps and more weight than it is sit there and do like the 120 times. 'Cause that means that you've already reached that grip strength level. You need to move up. This is the
Right.
150. It's a little bit tougher, and I've almost gotten able to close the 200. So I can't quite
Huh.
get it yet. And so if you
Back
guys
when
want
I
to check
used to
that product out, it's really cool. I really recommend it. So
Back when I used to rock climb a lot, we had grip strength tools like that too, except it was individual for each finger.
hmm
Just because when you climb, you're using just like 1 or 2 fingers to hang on. But yeah, it was the same thing. So I should probably try that again just to tighten up my grip strength, and maybe it'll improve my shooting a little bit.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about one of these, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I had.
Yeah, this is what I started with. It's like a trainer, and I carry it with
Yeah,
me everywhere I go because it's like just to keep the muscle memory. But now that I've been using those, it's just like it's
it's
nothing.
it's really nothing.
Really, what I like to do though is you work your like weaker fingers and stuff on your pinky. But
Do you see an improvement in your shooting or your grip with the use of those?
I mean, I don't know. It's kind of gradual over time. So yeah, I'm like I guess compared to when I first shot my first match, like my wrist was sore after I shot my first USPSA match because I was like the most pistol rounds I'd shot in succession.
Yeah, so maybe it just won't make you a better shooter. It'll just reduce the
It's
fatigue
the
over
fatigue, right?
time.
So that will in turn make you more
Yeah,
better
your
keep your
later stages
skills.
won't be sloppy.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what's new with me. Got those. Been trying those out, and I picked up a. Been building my AR upper. Almost got it complete. Waiting on a charging handle. I want to give you a shout out for sending me a Magpul forend grip. Really appreciate that.
Oh,
And
no problem.
yeah, man, it's awesome. And then Stone Guy's gonna send me a charging handle, so I'm supposed to be getting that this week. So
That's
I'm looking
funny. I
forward
thought
to
about that as soon as I sent it to you. I was wondering. I wonder if he has a charging handle. And I
that.
guess you don't, but I'm glad you got one, or else I would have had to send you one.
Oh, that's fine. That's awesome. So yeah, he's just gonna send me a mil spec one, and I think I'm gonna stick with that because I don't want anything that's gonna be bulky and getting hung up on everything. So I'll get that, and I'll pretty much be ready to run the upper.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what's new. But I guess we're gonna go ahead and dive into the topic tonight. We're just gonna talk about reloading, and hopefully we won't bore you guys too much. But we're gonna do it more from the noob standpoint of someone being introduced into it, because Jacob's about to get into reloading, and he just had some questions and stuff like that. And so we're just gonna talk about that. So what are you looking for? Why are you getting into reloading? First off, that's what jump out.
Two reasons. One, I like anything to do with guns, gear, ammo, anything like that. So if I can just learn more about the ballistic side and loading and what goes into that and just make my own ammo, I find that really fun and like a relaxing hobby. Um, I've seen people do it at my previous job, and then I got to play around with it a little bit, but I've never actually like set it up myself, so I don't know anything really about it. And then two is cost. Just through the small calculations I've done so far, I'm already looking at about splitting my cost of ammo in half once I recoup the startup fees. But being able to shoot for half the cost is definitely an incentive. So I can shoot 500, 1,000 rounds a month and it not be a big deal.
Right, yeah. So economic, and then just like you said, the enjoyment of it, and that's one thing that's really cool. It's kind of makes you proud whenever you make your own round like that, and then you see it perform, and you exceed your standards and exceed factory ammo standards even too. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and with getting into long range shooting and even possibly shooting matches, whether it's long range or pistol matches, I think it's cool that you can basically set up your own ammo for your rifle and the way you shoot and be able to um, perfect it to your standards. I mean, I think that's pretty neat.
Exactly. You can tailor it to what your needs are. So that's definitely one of the added benefits of it.
Yep.
So going on, leading off of that, what kind of presses have you been looking at, really, as far as the options out there? So there's definitely a lot
Um,
of them.
After talking to you a little bit and then some people that I know that reload as their full-time job, everyone has basically told me to get the 550. It seems like a good, it's kind of high end, I guess, for someone that's just starting out, but it's a good medium for um, learning how to load and then just going on from there. It'll be a good thing to last me for a long time.
Right, yeah, a lot of people like the Dylan presses because of the lifetime warranty as well. They're just known to last. And like I said, the 550 is really it's great because you can go as slow or as fast as you want to a certain point. So you can
Is
treat it
that
kind of
the,
like a single stage, and you can move the shell when you're ready to move it. Instead of like with a
yeah, that's what
650,
I
every time you
found.
move the RAM, it's rotating. So
Yeah, that's why I'm gonna go with that instead of the 650. Some people said go 650, but I was looking at the pros and cons, and they were saying the 650, if you're just starting out, it might be a little bit too advanced, and also if you're changing between calibers, it takes a lot longer just because there's more processes in that, so it takes a little bit more to set it up in between calibers.
exactly, yeah. I think the 650 is more geared towards small. I mean, you can do smaller rifle rounds, but for the speed, it's made for like pistol rounds, pretty much. I mean, it'll
Right.
do it'll do a lot of rifle rounds, but it's like if you're wanting that, it's made for more quantity than it is quality.
Yeah.
So you can pretty much get that same speed almost with a 550, pretty close to it, and
What
then you can still slow down and get go get quality if you want to.
what press did you start out on?
I started on an RCBS Rock Chucker single stage. Still have it. It's great. And but yeah, after shooting USPSA for about 2 or 3 months and having reloaded 200 rounds per match, it was killing me. I was like, gosh, this sucks. I mean, I
So
like
you
to re.
definitely see a big time improvement
Oh
between
yeah,
single
definitely.
seat and progressive.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely worth the time saved. Based on how much I shoot. That's the thing. If you're gonna get into reloading, you want to be, you want to sit down and realize how much you actually shoot. Because if it's a good bit, it'll be worth it. If it's not, you're gonna be sitting there and be like, why did I spend $1,000 or whatever on all this reloading equipment and I barely use it?
Yeah, back when I first started shooting, what is it, almost 4 years now,
Hmm.
I had wanted to get into reloading just because I saw everyone saying how cheap it was. But then I realized back then I was only shooting maybe 100, 200 rounds a month, and so it wasn't necessarily cost effective to get into reloading. But now that I have a wide range of guns, all in like 9 millimeters, which I try to stay in for handguns, and I'm shooting a lot more per month. It's definitely a viable option nowadays.
Right, I shoot rounds depending on how many matches I shoot and how big the matches are, anywhere from like 500 to 800 rounds a month.
Hmm.
So it's definitely worth it.
Nice.
So moving on, what are you planning on reloading? Like, what's your main calibers you're looking at?
Definitely 9 millimeter. I have probably, I don't know, I have thousands of it right now. Just I was able to stock up on it when I had good deals through my previous job. But I don't want to deplete that storage of ammo. I like to have a decent amount stored away for whatever. So I just plan on keep reloading
Building
whatever
on
I
that.
shoot at the range.
Yeah, it's funny too because now that I reload, it's like I don't even shoot factory ammo. It's like I'd
Yeah.
rather shoot my reloads because, well, I mean, I game my loads, for competition. So it's like I'll just shoot the factory just kind of like for fun or whatever. But it's just like I train with everything I shoot the same. I want it to be
Hmm.
all the same.
Yep.
So
So it'll be 9 millimeter, basically with the guns I have right now. So 9 millimeter, 223, and then 308. I have a 38 revolver, but I shoot that very rarely. It's a snub nose, so I only shoot that to practice, maybe every couple months. And then I might be getting a 1911, so maybe 45 down the
mhm.
road, especially because those prices keep going up and up and up. But yeah, mainly 9 millimeter is going to be the mainstay.
Right, that's what I started on actually when I bought my 550. That was all I was shooting at the time, and it's really easy caliber to reload. And it almost like when the economy's good, you can get 9 millimeter for pretty much as cheap as you can reload it. But like I said, another reason to have reloading is anytime there's ammo, a scare or whatever, and the market's really bad, you can always just load your own ammo. And another thing I want to point out too, for all obviously for the young people, is that you can't buy pistol ammo, or most places won't sell it to you. Even though if you could say you have a rifle, technically you could claim intent of shooting it through a rifle, but they could still say no. So if you're under 21, you can't buy it. For me,
Yeah,
that's
that was a
that's
very frustrating thing for me. I got my first handgun when I was 19, and so it's embarrassing, really, to have your mom or your dad go
yeah,
in
you
and
can
buy
buy
ammo
ammo.
for you. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, you have your driver's license. You can enlist in the military. You can buy cigarettes if you wanted to. You can do all this stuff, but you can't buy ammo. So I thought that was silly. So yeah, if you're younger, that's definitely a good solution.
Yeah, because I got my 1911 when I was 16, and like I shot factory ammo through it for a while, but I didn't shoot competitively or anything then. I shot for fun, so I could be like once every month or two, I'd go out and shoot a couple hundred rounds. And so I just bought a factory, and then that was the first thing I started reloading for and casting for actually. And I mean that was the only option, so that's why I did that. Like you said, because you can't get it, which is really ridiculous because you can get it for private sales and everything else like that.
Yeah.
I really don't understand why. I mean, it's just another arbitrary law that
And
we
you were
think we
mentioning
go in.
cost. I mean, even nowadays, I think right now the market is pretty amazing for prices. And I did some quick calculations last night, and I was looking at 12.5 cents per round. Um, that's using the brass I already have, but with FMJ bullets and just your standard loads and uh, standard CCI primers or whatever I put in there. But I mean and you can buy it for about 20 cents. So you're saving already 8 cents per round on that. So it can only get better once things get crazy.
Right. You said that was like with full metal jacket bullets.
Yeah, that was just what was it? Well, 115 FMJs from Extreme Bullets.
Right. Yeah. They sponsor a lot of matches down here. I've heard good things about them. I haven't shot them or anything like that. But another recommendation I've heard too is zero bullets. And you can get those
Yeah.
on Raw's distribution, I believe. Robbie on Gun Channels, he put me onto those. So if I ever order any, it'll probably be from there. But also, like we're talking about if you guys didn't know, I cast my own bullets. But you also can buy casted bullets that are moly coated, and they pretty much act just like plated bullets. And you can get those like Black Bullets International, Bayou Bullets, Blue Bullets, several manufacturers. I think Falcon Bullets is one I just saw the other day. So there's definitely a lot of options out there, and that'll save you a little bit more because they're a good bit cheaper. Because obviously it's not made out of copper, so it keeps the prices down.
Right. So what are you looking at cost wise nowadays for your loads for 9 mil?
For 9 millimeter, I'm looking at about 9.5 cents, 9 cents around there, just
Nice.
depending on how much I paid for the components. And that's when primers are 4 cents a piece, though. So actually, it's a little bit less if I get them cheaper. That's usually the most variable thing in cost. Well, that and powder. I don't buy powder like it on for gouge prices. I buy it the price it's supposed to be. So I ordered 8 pounds a few weeks ago actually, and I bought it like at the market price, like what it's like, what it's intended to be sold at, not like $40 a pound.
Hmm.
And so really the only thing that changes much is the primer cost because it jumps a lot. Like just for example, this past week I went into two different gun stores and one was like 35 or $36 for 1,000. The other one was like 31, 32, which isn't too bad considering like they were CCI and CCI online. They were like 26 bucks for 1,000, but then you got to factor in the hazmat fee and the shipping. It comes out to be pretty much the same.
Yeah, I was looking. I think the price I inputted last night for my little calculation I did, it was like 36.99 for 1,000 CCI.
Oh yeah, you can get them for 26 bucks actually from Powder Valley. That's one place I want to mention. PowderValley.com, great components website. They sell bullets, primers, brass, powder, all that stuff. And you have to stay on top of it though because they sell out quick. I mean, everything's very limited right now, especially with pistol powder. So I mean, you
Do
just
you
gotta watch.
see? Do you see? So like during scares, for instance, like the Sandy Hook stuff, and then any legislation that pops up, do you see components flying off the shelf as fast as ammo?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it doesn't take long for people to figure out because, well, that's another thing. I mean, it creates a lot of new reloaders too. Just like for you example, I mean, people are like, oh, I'm gonna start reloading now so I can shoot. And so all the people who want to shoot go, buy presses and stuff and start buying components.
Yeah, I mean that's another aspect of getting into it is that it allows you to always have that steady supply. Because I imagine it's easier to stock up on components typically than it is to stock up on manufactured ammo. So
Hmm.
like I plan on getting a bunch of just components just sitting around so that if something were to happen, I could still load consistently and have ammo to shoot on a regular basis.
Right, yeah, it's good to buy in advance. Like I just said, I bought 8 pounds the other day, so I should be good for the rest of the year, hopefully. Just
So
depending on how
you
much I
see,
shoot.
8 pounds goes a long way. I don't know how much it.
It's about 10,000 rounds, like 9 and 40, but you can get about the same. I mean, 9 and 40, the charge weights don't vary that much. I'm not gonna get into all the specs of it, but yeah, pretty much, it's 7,000 grains per pound. So,
So so say per 1 pound of powder, how many rounds can you get out of per 1 pound?
anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500, depending on the charge weight.
I see.
And that thousand's like being the low end, because like usually most like for 9 millimeter, that's 9 millimeter. Because I did a lot of calculations for 9 millimeter when I got it, started reloading it, and for like one of the powders I was using it was like 1,500 rounds, and another one I'm using it's a little bit higher. Um, it's more dense powder, so it takes a lot more. I mean, like 7 grains barely even it doesn't even come up to halfway to the case. So you only can get about 1,000 out of that
Yeah.
because there's only seven. Like I said, there's 7,000 grains, so 7 grains per case. It's exactly
Mhm.
1,000. I loaded a little bit under that actually for 9 millimeter for that powder, but
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. With these loads that you're talking about, do you load them to spec or do you load them a little low or how does that go?
right, that's another thing you want to get. I'm glad you mentioned that. A chronograph is pretty much essential to having a reloading setup. You're going to want a chronograph so you can test your rounds and see the velocities. But like for me, like I said, I shoot USPSA, so we have to meet a certain power factor, and you try to get as close as you can to that without being too dangerously close. You want to leave a little bit of cushion there, and that allows you to be stay legal, but also keep your rounds pretty easy to shoot.
Right, I was listening to the chat. It was either last night or the night before, and you guys were saying about that guy that they called 164 because his load was so low.
Oh right, yeah, because we messed with him about his power factor because he couldn't make power factor
Yeah.
because 165 is a power factor number for major.
Hmm.
So it looks like we just had Connor join us though. Thanks for coming in, Connor. What's up?
Nothing much. I just got off work. Uh,
Right on.
yeah. I was listening to y'all for a little while, and then I realized you'd sent me the link. Jacob, I heard you talking about reloading. Do you reload anything else besides 308? Y'all may have covered that, but I came in late.
No, so as of right now, I don't load anything.
Oh, okay.
I've been talking to Caleb, and then I've been talking to some people some other friends I know in town, and I'm just trying to get all the info I can, and then I'm about to purchase a Dylan 550.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, see, I don't own anything like a Dylan 550 or anything like that. Caleb's all fancy with all that. Um, but I've just got a single stage. I think it's RCBS. I think,
Hmm.
and it does everything I need it to do. 550 would be great, but personally, I don't reload enough to need it. I don't like Caleb
You
pumps
don't shoot
out.
enough. You don't shoot enough. You mean? Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
like Caleb shoots hundreds upon hundreds of 9mm ammo, so it makes perfect sense for him to have one. But me personally, the most ammo I'll go through is maybe 100 rounds of 223, and
Yeah,
it
that's what
depends.
we were just saying how just because you're getting into reloading, you don't have to buy the
Progressive
top end
presses.
stuff, the 550, 650, 1050,
Right.
whatever it is.
Oh
Exactly. So
You can
yeah,
be
he can
fine with
still
the
right, and that's what
single
Connor
stage.
kind of does, because like you still can reload when you want to,
yeah.
and not have to. Because like I want to mention that too. I believe Midway USA still has it on rebate. They should. It's their RCBS Rock Chucker. They have a kit right now, and I know it's like under $200. And it comes with the press. I think it comes with a scale and some other stuff. Pretty much almost everything you need besides components and dies and stuff like that. And it's actually a really good deal. So if you guys, anybody out there is looking for a basic reloading setup, and you want to do single stage, you should check that out because it's a really nice kit. And
Did you
that's
say Rock Chuck?
Rock Chucker, yeah, the
Rock
RCBS Rock
Chucker.
Chucker.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah,
So
I
you're,
looked at the single stages.
Yes, it is 289 at this point in time.
on Midway?
Yeah.
Oh dang, it must have went back to regular price because they sent me an ad the other day in the mail and it was like way cheap. I was like,
Oh
dang,
yeah.
like I was almost worth
Well,
buying it just because it's such a good deal.
it says it's on sale, 12% sale.
Let's see, maybe it's a different kit because I think I have like an ultimate and maybe.
I see a Rock Chucker just the
Okay,
press
just a
is
press.
is
Yeah.
136.
Okay,
But
so that is the
the
sale
whole
price, 289.
yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, but I will say, I Dad was the one that originally got into all this, and he bought. I think he bought everything separate, and it wound up being a whole lot more than that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's still a pretty decent deal.
Yeah, but I will say, and I saw somebody ask in chat a while back, and I responded, but they said they were told to get a good reloading book. What's y'all's preferred reloading book? Because I know mine, personally, mine's Hornady. I've always just been a Hornady guy.
Honestly, now that we're in the digital age, the manufacturers' websites are really good, and
Really?
they have great PDFs. I use that a lot actually, because I only have like two or three reloading books. Well, I have three. I have one from like 19, it was like late 1970s. In fact, it doesn't even have the 40 caliber in there because it didn't exist then. So I
Nice.
have that one, and then we have one that my dad bought like in the early 2000s, and then I have one that's a Lee, and it came with my cast bullet kit, and it's made for cast bullets mainly.
Yeah.
And so I usually just go to the powder manufacturer's website.
See, I've got 6 reloading manuals. I've got a really big one from Sierra. I got one from Spear. Got 3 or 4 from Hornady. Got one from Nosler. And there's one more right here somewhere.
hmm
Um,
So we were looking for that. We had some questions actually in the external. Robbie was asking what powders are sensitive to temperature change and what can be done to overcome sensitive powder. As far as actually like different brands, I'm not sure about that, but like black powder obviously is going to be a little bit more
yeah,
sensitive
yeah,
just because the different chemical compositions and stuff like that. And pretty much the best way to store powder is you're going to put it in a wooden crate's actually the best or something like that. Keep it dry. You don't want you want to keep the humidity controlled,
yeah.
and that's pretty much the best way to do it. And don't store it with any kind of ignition sources.
Yeah.
I was seeing that you should keep your primers and powder stored separately.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, I say I keep mine stored separately. They're on different shelves.
That's the same thing I do. That's fine. Well, I put it this way: I have like a 5 shelf cabinet. I'll have to take a
Yeah.
picture of it one day. You've seen it, Connor. And so
Yeah.
like at the very top I have the powder, and like at the very bottom I have the primer. So I'm not worried about the primers aren't going to make that big of an explosion to reach the powder. And then if they do, they still have to go through the container of the powder and penetrate the
Yeah.
plastic. It's not like you have open powder sitting there.
And
It's another point. Don't leave open powder around on your bench and stuff. Close it up.
yeah.
And I actually close mine up every time I'm loading and I fill the hopper. Like as soon as you fill up the hopper or
Mm-hmm.
whatever and you still some in the bottle, go ahead and close the bottle up because you will
Mm-hmm.
knock it over.
I've
Tap it.
done that. I've done that 2 or 3 times.
hmm
Actually, what happened one day is I was reload. I think I was reloading the 30-06, and I went to grab the powder can, and I literally hit it with the back of my hand and knocked it over.
Yeah.
And like onto the scale. It whenever it was ball powder, it wasn't flake, it was ball, so it just
So just
rolled
like roll it
everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah, that's funny.
And so you know my brilliant idea was to get everything, and I was like, well, I can't use it anymore, so I threw it, and I've got a 5 gallon bucket,
Mhm.
and so I threw it in this 5 gallon bucket, and then took it outside and just hosed it down with water, just to make sure nothing was gonna happen.
Oh, you should have lit it and had some good video footage.
I've done that before. Like I've got like 3 or 4 flakes
Yeah. Oh
on
yeah.
the
I've lit in little like when I pull bullets and stuff. I'm not using that powder anymore or something like that. Or if
yeah
it's like a factory bullet, for some reason I'm pulling
yeah
it. I don't know why I would. I think I pulled a couple factory rounds one time just for fun, and I
yeah
burned the powder up in them. But
yeah
someone else was saying in the chat too. They were asking single stage for rifle, and then turret for pistol. So that's pretty close. But if you want to go, if you're depends on what kind of rifle you're loading for. Rifle, I mean, you could be loading for bench rest shooting, or you could be loading for like a semi-automatic, carbine. So
yeah.
what
Like
I
five,
like my ideal setup is to have like a single stage, obviously for anything I want to do, really slow and accurate, and then a turret press, like a one station turret press. It'll have 4 dies, but only have one case on it at a time, and use that for like rifle if I want to load a little bit more quantity, and then obviously you'll have the completely progressive for the pistol and stuff like that.
yeah. I just saw in chat on gun channels. Somebody asked, "What are the dangers posed by lead and reloading?" Um,
That's a great question. Yeah.
lead it's not really a big deal. I mean, it's like when you like copper bullets, lead you can get lead poisoning, but you would basically have to eat a bullet, and
Right. It's pretty much most of it is ingestion.
yeah,
And we'll talk about. I mean, there is different set of safety issues if you're smelting lead or whatever, but that's another
yeah,
chat for another time. But
Yeah,
as
so
far as as far as loading, I'll tell you what I actually love. Like I use gloves, and the best gloves I've found because you want something close fitting, so you're not going to be getting your glove pinched up in the machine, all that. And they're called Gorilla Grip, I think that's what they're called, and they're like $5 a pair at Home Depot, and they're they stick right to your hand, and they have good grip on them, and they're pretty cheap, but they work perfect for reloading, and that's pretty much all it is, and it keeps the lead and everything off your fingers. And another thing about ingesting it is you don't want to eat, smoke, be touching your face, any of that when you're reloading, and obviously you want to have good airflow, but that's really not an issue usually if you have standard air conditioning and you're not like sitting there like you know throwing powder up in the air and stuff. And like I don't know. I mean I don't know how that'd be an
yeah,
exposure issue like that.
yeah.
yeah, so
Go ahead,
um,
Jacob.
back at the machine gun range that I used to work at, there was a couple people that loaded ammo full time on a bunch of automated machines, and then a bunch of us, including myself, we instructed the tourists and everyone else how to shoot the machine gun and stuff. And we were on the range all the time, and the people that were on the range right next to the guns, just going off all day long, and inside the indoor range, ingesting all that air, they had higher lead levels than the people reloading the ammo, and that's because, like you said, it's all ingested through the air is
Exactly. Yeah. Really,
faster.
really, if you're talking about airborne ingestion, the biggest biggest vehicle for it getting your body is in the dust particle form usually.
Yep. And so
Um,
I don't know if you guys are familiar, but in indoor ranges they have traps in the back, which are
mhm.
big steel
Hmm.
bins, and then
Yeah,
every night we had to empty them out. So you take all the buckets, you pour them into a bigger bucket to consolidate it all, and then we would just dispose of it. A company would come pick it up. But when you pour those buckets, a lot of air would come up into the or a lot of dust would get in the air, and a lot of guys wouldn't wear the ventilation masks like they were supposed to because we were given masks each person. But everyone we got tested about once a month, and everyone who didn't wear their mask, people that smoked a lot, that always had their hand near their mouth,
Exactly. Yep.
um, and then like stuff like that, and people that were on the range had higher levels all the time than people that loaded. The people that loaded ammo rarely had high lead levels that were anything worth being cautious of.
yeah. And that's one of those things. Like if you're just a recreational shooter and you don't work at a place like machine gun range or a range or anything like that, lead ingestion is not really anything to be worried about as long as you just wash your hands when you're done. Basic hygiene, basically. But I will say powder. Um, you do when I reload, I wear glasses, like just clear glasses. Well, actually, I wear like prescription.
Prescription,
But yeah, I wear
which
prescriptions
is
now.
tougher, which is actually
Yeah,
tougher than safety glasses. People didn't you didn't know that. So
yeah. But I wear prescriptions now. But before I did, I just wear like safety glasses because I have gotten powder in my eye before,
Oh God.
and it's awful. It
Yes.
burn it not just the irritation of it being in your eye hurts. You get a chemical burn.
Yeah, because it's like sand, except it's made out of like
Yeah,
sulfur and potassium and whatever,
yeah.
sulfate, whatever they put in
Um,
it.
so basically, and I was fine. I got it out. What happened is once I realized I'd gotten powder in my eye, I basically just went and like rinsed my eye out with a bunch of water.
Eye wash.
For
Yeah.
yeah, for like 10, 15. I put a bunch of saline in my eye. They floated out. Pretty much everything you would do if you got like a flake of metal in your eye or
Yeah.
something like that. But that's pretty much my biggest concern is having powder get in my face and my mouth. And if you're safe and careful and don't do dumb things, it won't happen.
Exactly. Just use common sense, which
Yeah.
sadly isn't too common now. But anyways, we
Yeah.
got another question here from Robbie saying, is it possible that the residue from spent primers could combust? Because we'll talk about, actually, I'll talk a little bit about how primers work really quickly to give you guys an overview. Pretty much, you have the cup of the primer, which is like the whole metal housing. Then they put like a mixture. That's what actually combusts when the powder goes off, and they have the anvil. And when the anvil and the primer are pushed together, the anvil creates a spark and it makes that powder, the mixture in there ignite. And all that's usually already burnt by the time the primer's been used, and most of it just comes out looking like black dust and crap. And I don't think it have the potential to combust. I guess in a very very rare case, it might. But the worst thing that's happened to me with that crap is it gets stuck in your press and it can slow down your progressive press, so you got to keep it clean. So that's pretty much all there is to say about the primers. I know you're asking about the differences in components, Jacob. What you want to talk about specifically?
So I was just curious, as you said you use cast bullets as far over copper jacketed bullets, and that's for obviously for cost.
Hmm.
And then with that, there are some limitations in barrels that you can shoot that through, such as Glock says don't shoot any lead bullets through, um, just for warranty reasons and whatever. But then as far as powders go through, what are you seeing a big difference in powders? And is there one that you prefer over others, or is there one that you try to buy? And same thing for primers.
Yes, definitely so. For the powder, like I said, we were talking about this a little bit off air, I know. You have a lot of different, really the main two things that characterize powder is the three-dimensional shape of it and the burn rate, and they both correlate with each other. Depending on how the powder, the shape of it has a lot to do with the burn rate and because how dense the powder is versus how if it's not dense, creates more air and stuff like that, and it can change the burn rate and all that. Because they're pretty much on the chemical level, they're pretty all similar, and um, you have what you have called flake powder, which is used in shotguns and stuff a lot. It's also used in handguns. And then you can get spherical ball powder. It's just like little tiny spheres. And then they have like extruded ball. They have all different kinds of names for them. But there's like a lot. Those are There's three main categories: flake ball, and then the last one is the stick powder, which looks like a little bit. If you take a lead pencil and you push out about push about 3 times, that's like what one stick looks like. Maybe about push it twice, and that's really about what the size they are. They can be a little bit thicker depending on the brand and everything. And that's usually what they use in rifles most of the time. Stick powder is rifle powder, but it can be for any of them. You can have it in all three types: rifle, shotgun, and pistol. Just depends on the manufacturer. And as far as primers go, they're really the main difference is you have Magnum, you have the size, and then you have Magnum and regular. So you have large and small, and then you have Magnum and just regular primers. And then after that, really the difference is the softness or the hardness of the primer. And you don't really run into problems with that unless you're like me running a lighter spring in your gun, a lighter striker spring, and the striker won't have enough force behind it to set the primer off. And so that's where you can kind of get picky with primers. But in a stock gun, pretty much, I've never had any problems with any primers at all.
Now you mentioned there's regular and Magnum. Can you use a Magnum primer in like say a standard 9mm, or is it only for a Magnum load such as 357?
You can use it, and yeah, you can use it in any small case like that. which is what I've actually been having to do. I had to do that for the past few months. I'm about to get rid of my Magnum primers because that's all I could find on the shelf. Because like we said earlier, people were buying up components. So
Hmm.
I mean, it's just like I heard someone say one time. A good example is it's like taking a small pan and putting it on a big eye on the oven. It's pretty much all it is, or vice versa. You'd be fine. You wouldn't want to put a small, like a regular primer, in a case that was made for Magnum primers because you might have poor ignition. But going the other way with Magnum primers, like a 9 millimeter, it's not going to be a problem at all. I haven't had any issues with it.
Do you see anything as far as maybe like faster burns or anything like that, or
With
anything?
different primers.
Yeah, say like if a Magnum primer, does it ignite faster? Does it ignite the powder faster or anything like that?
I mean, I'm sure there is some minute differences. I really don't have the tools to measure that.
But nothing.
Noticeable, no. Most of the burn rate stuff like that is within the powder
I
itself.
see.
Looks like we got a question here on gun channels. What
So,
is saying? Is it safe to load? Robbie's asking, is it safe to load ammunition for a pistol beyond what is listed in any manual? Well, define the term. You guess I could say to define the term safe. Most all reloading manuals are written so that there is a room of tolerance in case of if someone messes up and they go over, they're not going to kill themselves because those max loads aren't like max loads like blow up the gun. They're just really hot. So they're not going to put the data in there that's like, oh, this gun blew up a bolt, because then they don't want people going up to that. So
yeah,
that kind
and
of
I think a lot of us reloaders. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that like to shoot the 500 Smith and Wesson and all those large calibers, but I mean, at least for me, I'm gonna do it for a more cost-effective thing, and so
hmm
I'm not trying to load as hot as possible. 'Cause I'm trying to keep it where it's reliable and will function, no problem, but then it's
right.
also as low cost as possible as well.
Yeah, that's one thing to mention too. With pistols, really, you're gonna be reloading like that, and you're not gonna have to worry about the range that much. But with rifles, you can actually some rifles like the hotter loads, and a lot of the rifles can be really picky, and they only have like a 2 or 3 grain range. Like for example, I think when we were loading for our 300 Remington Ultra Mag, it was like 80 grains of powder to 83 grains of powder, and 83 was the max. And it's
Hmm.
crazy how much of a difference that'll make in a rifle like that, and accuracy. And like we started shooting them 83, and the bolts started getting like tight just because we shot about 5 of them through it like that. And that
Hmm.
just it can change really quickly. That's why you also another reason you want to be real precise on a rifle and stuff like that is because it can be kind of ticky and stuff like that. But for the pistol, yeah, I mean I pretty much just load for like you said economy and for sport shooting. So yeah, you don't
And
want
then
to don't load past the max. So it's bottom line there,
before
unless you're feeling
before we get
lucky.
off, oh sorry. Before we get off the top of components and whatnot, is there a set load that you like to use, a certain primer and powder that you is like your go-to thing that you prefer?
As far as primers go, I've only used 4 brands I think. I really like Winchester. I really like Remington. Really like CCI. I've used Tula. They were fine too. The only thing is they wouldn't run with the light spring, but I had the same problem with CCIs too. So really, like I said, if you're changing springs and you're not running stock parts, that's really the only time you run into issues with them. And then other than that, though, I will say though that the CCI Magnum primers are a little bit longer as far as the height of the primer, and sometimes they don't want to seat as easily on the press. And if they're not lined up just right, you'll smear them. I've smeared probably 5 to 10 primers in the past few months, which is a pretty good bit actually. And that's just because I've been using Magnum primers. And of course, usually they're fine, but I usually set those aside and I shoot them as practice ammo or whatever.
Interesting.
And then you said as far as what preferred load, what do you want to know, a powder or a case? Um, as far as brass goes, for a pistol anyways, I don't worry about the head stamp at all. As long as it's um, not stretched or anything like that, has any bulges in it that the size that I can't take care of, or any cracks, then you're usually good to go. And as far as powder goes, right now I'm pretty much anything I can find. And really, the main thing you want to look for, if for obviously for cost reasons, is a low charge weight, and you want a powder that's going to meter well, which means it's going to drop from the powder measure accurately every time. It's not going to vary because the flake powder, for example, those flakes will bend and stuff, and they'll get stuck in the powder measure, and they won't drop the exact weight every time. So ball powder is usually the best for dropping the same consistent charge every time.
Do you see metering change more between presses or more between powders?
Well, actually I have seen it between pretty much both. Like yeah, like I said, it's either like if well, for example, here's an example. I was loading a green dot for a while, which is a flake powder, so it's already not going to be very prone to good consistent drop powder charge drop. And I was loading some on a Lee auto disc is what they call it, and then I loaded on the 550 powder measure, and the Dillon powder measure is a lot better than the Lee one, and it was a lot more consistent on the Dillon than it was the Lee, but it still was like zero point 0.1, zero point 0.2 grains different on the Dillon, but which wasn't that bad for what I was doing for pistol. It's not going to matter that much.
Hmm.
So and then as far as bullets, that's just whatever. I mean, pick your pick of the crop pretty much.
And do
Um,
you have a preference on that? You've been mentioning that you cast, so is that your go-to right now, or?
right. I like to shoot my what I cast like 125 grains, and I had to make that decision when I started shooting 9 millimeter whether or not I was gonna what size what weight bullet I was gonna shoot, and a lot of people seem to think that the heavier bullets have less recoil because they're not as I mean it's not as sharp it's not leaving the barrel as fast because you can shoot in USPSA the heavier the bullet is the slower it can go and still make power factor.
Hmm.
So a lot of people shoot like 147 grains in 9 millimeter, and that's usually the general consensus. But I mean, really, just the best way to do is just to buy like 100 of each weight and see if you can tell a difference yourself. And if you can't, like for you, if you're just gonna go out and you're just doing range shooting, just buy 115 grains and load. But another reason I went with the 125 too over the 147 was that there's just a little bit more data out there for them, and there's a broad range of applications for that bullet weight. So that's why I went with that.
So you're saying that more people, a lot of reloaders tend to steer towards the 147s over
For
the
comp for
150s?
gaming for gaming loads, yes, most definitely.
Oh,
And also, I believe a lot of them self-defense rounds, people go for the 147 grain because obviously you're going to get more foot pounds and everything
correct.
like
Right.
that.
I see.
So,
Interesting.
um, looks like Robbie had a question here. He's saying, if you do load ammunition too hot, what should you look for as far as danger signs? There's a couple things you can look for. You're going to look at the primer, and if you see the primer start to crater out, like outside of the primer pocket, that's usually a sign of too much back pressure or too much pressure. It's pushing the primer back out of the pocket, or either expanding the primer in the pocket, and you'll see it. I've never actually had one do it to me, but it's pretty obvious when it happens. Usually you can tell. Another sign is the brass might be getting. Well, this has to do with the chamber too. The brass might be getting burnt or something like that. It might be staining the brass, like it'll be black or something like that. And also you're going to look for brass having too much tension around the neck. You'll see cracks or something like that, or you'll see it might blow the brass out, expand it really far. In fact, you can shoot if you shoot too hot of a load, you could shoot so hot that it expands the brass. Like if it's a bolt action, for example, it could expand the brass so much at the neck in the chamber that you couldn't extract the brass because it would be grabbing onto the side of the chamber. That's an extreme situation, but something like that could happen.
So transitioning towards kind of like the costs of reloading and whatnot. As far as brass goes, do you re pick up your own brass and do you just police your brass and just use that, or do you purchase brass?
I just use range brass. I mean, for pistol, yeah, definitely. Now, if I was like for when we reload for hunting rifles, we save all our brass, obviously, and all that, and we don't use that much anyways because it's just for hunting. So, and
Hmm.
it's a lot more controlled. It's usually, I think it's all the same head stamp too, and and we rifle brass takes a lot more prep than pistol. You can do all the same prep to pistol brass, but you typically don't need to. But for rifle brass, you deprime it. I like to clean the primer pocket. Then I like to deburr the neck, and then I like to chamfer it so that it allows for easy bullet seating, and then all that good stuff. And then you want to use case lube when you size them and all that, and that just helps from, you know, for better consistency and everything.
Right. And then as far as lifespan goes, so say I have probably, I don't know, 3,500, 4,000, just once, I call once fired brass, just picked up from wherever, from my old work or off the range. Is there a
Mhm.
lifespan on that brass? Like, what am I looking at? How many times can I load that ammo?
For pistol brass,
Yeah.
um, I mean, I've never actually taken one case and shot it as many times as I could because I just don't want to take the time to do it. But I
Hmm.
mean, like for 9 millimeter, it'd probably be like 20, 30, 40, 50 times. I mean, it just depends on the load you're shooting through it. Like a load like I'm shooting, probably for a long time like that. And then really what usually happens is the brass just gets stretched, or either it'll get a weak spot in it and crack or whatever. I see, like I'd say that all out of the brass I pick up at a match, out about like of about 1,000 to 2,000 pieces, there might be 3 or 4 that are cracked, sometimes none.
Hmm.
So really, I don't
So
see that many
that's what
cracked
to look
cases.
for, just the cracking in the brass is when you know it's time
Yeah,
to toss it,
and
or
and sometimes you'll see around the neck actually, or well, really not a neck on 9 millimeter brass, it's just the lip at the top of the brass. You'll see like a little, it won't be a crack, but it'll be like a divot and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And you just don't want to. That's usually just a weak spot in the brass, and you just toss those just to be sure.
Now I know
Or maybe
back
cracked.
before I knew anything about reloading, I would see dented cases and think, oh, those are no good, just toss them. But now that I'm learning more, and correct me if I'm wrong, the machine, the press can fix the dented cases and whatnot.
It depends on if the dent's inward or outward. So if it's like I guess it'd be classified as a bulge then. So if it's a bulge, yes. If it's a dent, like pushing into the case,
Uh-huh.
the sizing die is not going to fix that. And
I
that's
see.
depending on where it's at, it shouldn't be that big of a problem. Probably like in a high power rifle, you probably might want to chunk that. Like in a pistol, like if you have just a little dent on the side of it. If it's already loaded, you probably go ahead and shoot it, but then you're probably not going to want to use it again just because of consistency reasons, and it could cause feeding issues and stuff like that if it gets called on another round or something like that. And so that's pretty much for, like I said, for pistol. It's not that picky.
Hmm.
So yeah, but I've never really ran into that many dented cases like that. So sometimes they'll shoot out. You'll shoot them and they'll expand back out to the chamber. What they call fire form to the chamber,
Uh-huh.
and then you can resize it back to factory.
So it seems that the recurring theme is that for someone starting out, a simple pistol load is the best way to just get your feet wet and kind of just learn the machine and the steps, and then from there on, just go on to more specified loads and maybe rifles and stuff and whatnot.
Right, yeah. I mean, just definitely take it slow. And I actually started loading rifle before I loaded pistol. Well, I would help my dad do it, and I kind of watched
Mhm.
him and learned it. And then I just started doing pistol, and pistol was so much easier. It was surprising, but yeah.
And then getting into cost, I mentioned a little bit earlier, and what was it? Connor mentioned how he has a single stage, and I plan on getting the 550, and so there's definitely a wide variety of presses that we can get, and I'm choosing to go the 550 route just because I do plan on loading a larger quantity of rounds, and I like to just kind of go all in when I do get into stuff like this, and so that's why I'm going with the 550. But what are we looking at cost wise for getting into reloading?
Well, for your example, for a 550, I believe Robbie mentioned they're like 440 right now for just a press. But you're gonna want to buy the press, the mount. There's all kinds of little extra stuff you can buy that you're gonna want to use. Because if you don't have all the extra stuff to make it run, it's not even worth having. It's like having a Ferrari with no wheels. So
Right, so you're buying a progressive press, but then you're hindering yourself by not having the tools to actually run it.
right, like the primer and pickup tubes and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And that stuff's really not that expensive. I bought my whole setup to my door was like $530, and that came with the press. I believe it came with a conversion kit, and it came with this spare parts kits. I bought some primer pickup tubes, some extra die lock rings, and then I bought the strong mount separate. So like really, I was probably looking at about $600 by the time I had my Dillon 550 set up for one caliber. But that also, what dies you buy can play a huge factor in how much you spend. I recommend Dillon dies for their press, obviously, because it's made for their press. And you can look at their dies, and the mouth of the die are usually they're belled out, so that allows more of a looser tolerance for the shell entering the die. Because if you have a die like a sizing die, or no, like a bullet seating die, for example, and the diameter of where you seat it is like just a few thousandths bigger than the bullet, it's going to be hard to keep the press moving fast because if the bullet's not sitting straight in the case when you place it, it'll catch on that. So the Dillon dies are opened up for that, and they work the best. But they're about $65 for the set, which isn't too bad at all.
I see. And then I saw read something about there's like carbide dyes and then just regular dyes. Is there a big difference between the two?
Yeah, you definitely want to get tungsten carbide because the regular dies will rust up, and they usually when you size them, you like have to use case lube because it'll drag on the brass. the die will catch on the brass. I don't think I even own a set of dies that are not carbide, because like that's more the back in the day, that's all they had. I mean, it was really hard. I mean, the carbide dials were just catching on, and now carbide dials is like what everybody uses.
So it's best to just do it right the first time rather than buying stuff and then having to replace it.
Right. Yeah.
And so you're mentioning you like to buy a lot of the Dylan stuff. As far as like what I'll call accessories, kind of like your powder, like the scales and your tumblers and stuff like that. Do you buy from Dylan or do you recommend different companies or where do you get that type of stuff?
You can. The electronic scale I have actually is pretty good. I like it, and it's the Hornady. It's like a $50 model. I forget the actual name of the model. It's like $50 for it, and I really like it. As far as tumblers go, I just use the tumbler my dad got. He's had it for years, and it's worked fine. It's a Lyman, and he's literally had it since like early 2000s, like 2000, 2001 when he started reloading. So, and it still runs great. So that's a good tumbler. The Lyman tumblers, pretty much. Lyman's a really good company as well. They have really good quality stuff most of the time.
For tumblers, I'm seeing a big difference in the sizes. Do you recommend, so for someone like me who's trying to shoot 500, maybe 1,000 rounds a month, what size tumbler would be a good option?
Well, they did by how many cases you can fit per, in there at one time, and they
Uh-huh.
usually tell you like you can fit this many 9mm, this many 223, and this many. They'll like list like three different popular, calibers, and pretty much like mine I have is a little small. I would like it to be a little bit larger tumbler, but I mean if you can fit like 300 or 400 cases in there, it's not a problem, and that's pretty much all you need. You can get I think Frankfurt Arsenal has a huge tumbler. It's pretty large, and you can put a lot of cases in it. I wouldn't mind having that.
Right. So, um,
So I mean, buy the biggest one you want, pretty much, if you can afford it. Would be my advice.
just so you can get it all done at once. And then other tools that I'm seeing might come in handy is a case sorter. I was talking to Caleb and I told him the other day I have a 5-gallon bucket of brass that I've been sorting by hand, and it is definitely a chore. I've been doing it while I'm listening to chats and audiobooks, and it's taken a while by hand, but I don't have the case sorters yet, and from now on I only really shoot 9 mil, so I'll keep all my brass separated from now on. But it takes a lot of time. So, is there anything else like that that you recommend to pick up?
Like I said, yeah, the case sorter is one thing, and really you can just I don't know what they actually call them. I just call them. I think they're called shell sorters.
Hmm.
They're like $50 for the set, and you get three little containers, and you can sort 9, 40, and 45 is what it sorts, and also the rifle, small rifle and stuff will fall through, just depending on the diameter of it. But yeah, you're gonna want that. You're gonna want the scale, like we said. One thing, the number one tool that you're gonna want that really isn't sold as a reloading tool, you're not gonna find it with any kits hardly, is a set of calipers, because that's
Oh, I
gonna,
have one of those,
yeah,
so
you definitely
good
need
on that
that
one.
because that measures like, your overall length. It just anytime you need to measure anything, because reloading is all about measurements, pretty much. Whether it be powder, like which is why you have a scale. So then the length for the calipers and all that.
Hmm.
So you definitely want to have that. It's a very nice tool. You don't want to reload without it.
Hmm. Interesting. So, is there anything I'm missing as far as reloading out the press? And like, where's a good place to purchase this stuff? Is there stuff that comes with like kits so that I don't miss out on something like this, or um,
Well, yeah,
for example?
like I mentioned earlier, for example, the RCBS, they sell their kit, and Dylan doesn't really sell a kit. I don't think. You just buy their stuff from their website, and most places, I think, I'm not sure. I think Lee sells a kit. I know Lee does. They sell like a Loadmaster or something. I forget. And I think Hornady, the lock and load, they might sell a kit with it. But most of the more expensive presses, it's just like you buy the press and then you buy everything else with it.
Right, they kind of expect you to kind of be on your own by then.
Yeah. And then I guess that way, because some people can't necessarily buy everything at one time. Like for me, I'm still buying stuff for my press, slowly building up the inventory. I can't. If I wanted to, ideally, it'd be cool if I could go buy when I would have bought my Dylan 550. If I would have bought everything to reload 9, 40, and 45, I would have. But that's not realistic for me. So, another tool though I want to mention, actually, I was about to forget, for loading ammo is a case gauge. Really, you don't need that for rifle. If you're loading like precision rifle, you can test it out in your barrel, and usually the rifles have pretty lenient chambers. But like for example, for my Glock 35, the KKM barrel is extremely tight, and what a case gauge does is it's a block of aluminum is usually what they make them out of, and they use the actual boring tool, the chamber tool, that they use to cut the chambers on barrels, and you can get them in 50 or 100 chambers, and so it's like a little chamber block pretty much, and you stick your live rounds in there, and if they sit in flush, you know that they'll chamber in your gun. If they don't, usually they'll have something wrong with the brass or the bullet or something like that, and that lets you know which rounds are not good.
And then you mentioned, I think, I don't know if this is in the before we went live or whatnot, but you said the strong mount is recommended for the 550.
Yes, definitely. If you're getting the 550 guys, you want to get a strong mount because strong mount allows you to mount a case feeder. If you ever want to do that, it allows you. Dylan sells a little toolkit, which is pretty much just the Allen wrenches you need for the press, and you can mount that on the back of the strong mount. It allows you to mount your finished cartridge bin, and your live round chute, which the rounds come off the turret and they go down a little chute into a bin. If you don't have the strong mount, you have to mount that bin. You have to drill 2 more holes into your bench and then mount the chute and then put the bin underneath the chute. Whereas the strong mount, you just mount the piece directly to the strong mount, and the bin just hangs off of it. And they'll actually send you the mount for that when you buy the strong mount. They'll send you the finished cartridge mount that goes on it.
So once again, it seems like you pay a little more, but then you're adding to your functionality and making it all just run a little bit smoother.
Right. Another thing they sell too, for the Dillon specifically, I'm sure other manufacturers sell for their presses, is a bullet tray. And that's another thing you can mount off the strong mount is the bullet tray. Instead of having to reach way down to your bench, the bullet tray literally sits about 4 or 5 inches away from the die, or not from the die, but from the case in the third station where you're going to be sitting the bullet. So you literally have to move your hand just like 4 inches. You just pick a bullet up and set it on the case.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of a bunch of them with you had the case mounted on one side, and then the bullet, the actual completed cartridge, that tray mounted somewhere else, and then the projectile mounted another place. So
Right.
it's all good to go and keeps things moving.
Yeah, I haven't got my bullet tray yet. I really want to, just because it'll look nicer and it'll be a lot more efficient. So hopefully I'll get it soon. But really, the only thing, once you get the essential tools, you don't have to worry about all the extra stuff. You should focus more on components. That's kind of what I do. So I make sure I actually have the stuff to make ammo, because it's no fun. I might have a nice shiny press, but if I can't afford the powder and stuff to feed it, then it doesn't do anything. Once again, using the Ferrari example, it's like having a Ferrari but without gas.
Yeah. I think, just like you said, I think the press is actually going to be the last thing I purchase. The store's closed tomorrow and today, but I think maybe on Tuesday I'm going to stop by my local shop that tends to have a lot of reloading stuff and start picking up components of just maybe like primers and whatnot, just so I can have stuff. That way, in the end, once I finally get the last piece, which will be the press, I can get going and I don't have to worry about finding other stuff.
Right, you can just sit down and load. Well, actually, the day I got my press, I set it up. Well, I got it that week during the week, and then that Saturday when I was free, I mounted it to the bench and everything, and I got it set up. And by that night, I was loading ammo on it, and it was awesome. I was like, also, it was just great. I was like, oh my gosh, so much better. It's like, where have you been my entire life? 550.
Yeah, I got a lot of work to do. I got to basically build up the whole thing, but it'll be worth it.
Yeah, no, I will say the one thing that's slow, since we're talking about the 550s specifically, is the primer system is you only can use small pistols or large pistols or large primer or small primer before you have to change. There's a bar in there that picks the primer up and takes it to the shell, and you have to switch that depending on if you're using small or large. So I haven't actually switched it because I think it came, or maybe I did switch. I can't remember. I think I switched it the day I got it because it came with the large installed, maybe. Or maybe it didn't. But it's not. It's like a 10, 15-minute switch, if that. You get faster as you figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And some people actually buy 2 550s, and they'll have one set up for all small primer cartridges and one set up for all large primer cartridges. And I'm thinking one day I might do that if I ever start shooting a lot of large primer stuff. But
And I've also been seeing a lot of people have complete, like, not just the conversion kits, but is it called what's it called? The tool head or something like that? Just like a whole setup per different caliber, so they can just basically mount it and get going.
That's another thing, a good point. For the Dillons, you definitely want to buy the way their tool heads work. It's just an aluminum block, and it has four threaded holes in it. Those, and that's where your dies go in those threaded holes. And instead of taking each die out and just putting new dies in, you can pull literally two pins on the press, and you can slide the whole tool head out, and it has all your dies on it, so they all stay set for the right depths and everything. And then you just take another tool head, another caliber, put it on there, and you can get extra powder measures. I just use the same one
Hmm.
right now because they're it's like $80 or no, I think it's like 50 or $80 for a powder measure, I think.
Right.
I can think it's like 80 if you get the powder die with it. But so I just use one powder measure. It's not that hard to switch it. But if you really want to be fast, you can buy you can buy a powder measure for each caliber.
Mm.
And they're like I just pull two pins. You gotta knock loose a safety thing that's on the primer hookup or powder hookup, but it's not that hard. So literally, it's like not even 5 minute change at that point.
Yeah, so it seems once again, if you put a little bit more money into it, you can have a more convenient system to use, and it'll put out a little bit more. It'll be a little bit faster to use as well.
Yeah, and also you do have to change the shell plate, which is the part that holds the brass on the bottom, the ram part that
Hmm.
spins. But that's not that hard to change either. It's literally two bolts, yeah,
I see.
or two screws rather, two Allen screws, and then you pop it loose, put the new one on, put the locator pins in, ready to go. That's really fast. So Robbie's bringing up the op, what lighting options there are for reloading presses. That's one thing to mention is you want to be able to see everything that's going on in your reloading press. You want to have a well lit area. And I've actually been wanting to get some LED lights for my press. And there's
I've been looking at those a lot of like inline fabrication. I think it was had some
right,
LED thing that was right in the middle and lights up the whole thing. Looks pretty neat.
exactly. Yeah, that's a website we'll throw out there. Robbie had mentioned it to us earlier, I believe. Inlinefabrication.com, and they sell all kinds of accessories for Dillon, Lee, Hornady. They sell all kinds of neat reloading accessories, and they're pretty cool. And I'm definitely going to have to get one of those eventually. Because then the tool head we were talking about earlier, you get the four holes where the dies go. There's a hole in the middle. That's just I guess to cut weight out, and it's a perfect spot to put a light. And that way you can shine right down on your case. And that way every time you as you're sitting there loading, I like to visually check each case and see there's powder in it. And that doesn't mean that I stop the press and look. It means that I just keep my head in the same place the whole time I'm working, and I can just see the powder in there as I'm spinning the wheel for the
Right. So
cases
your
on it.
main focus among everything else is on making sure that the powder is not double charged and that there actually is powder in there.
Right, yeah, like I don't even look. Like my left hand and right hand, well, the fact that I cast bullets, sometimes I'll glance at the bullet and make sure there's no deformities with it or anything like that.
Hmm.
But other than that, I'll keep my eyes directed at the cases on the press, and then my right hand picks up cases by itself. I don't even look at what I'm doing over there because I already know how to do it by feel. And so I
Nice.
pick up case, put it on the press, and then I run it, pick up a bullet, set the bullet, seat it, spin it, run it. So it's just you getting a pattern really, and that keeps your pace up too.
Cool. So it seems like you have a pretty well grasp on reloading and a lot of the ins and outs, and you're even casting your own rounds and whatnot. But what do you recommend for someone like me or and other people out that are just getting into reloading? What do you recommend as a good place to start, just to learn the basics and whatnot?
Well, as far as you just talking about in general reloading at all,
Yeah, sure.
well, I know we've talked about before. They're actually it's nice. You can go to what they call reloading classes now,
Hmm.
and you can go and they'll have an instructor there who will teach you. They'll be hopefully a smaller class, 8, 10 students or whatever, and they'll walk you through how to reload, and you'll get to reload your own ammo and everything, and just kind of teach you the process. So definitely check that out if you're worried about it. For me, yeah, like I said, I grew up watching my dad do it, and he would let me like deprime the cases. Like when I was like 8 years old, I'd be standing there. Well, I would sit in the chair beside him and watch him. And like I always thought it was so cool to deprime it because it was just, I don't know, it was just fun for me. He'd be like, "All right, you can deprime the case." So I'd put it in there or whatever, and then I would deprime it. That was all our hunting round stuff,
Uh-huh.
and we would do that. And but yeah, definitely check out the reloading classes if you're getting into it. You don't have anybody to show you. But for example, like if you live near me, you could come over and I could literally show you like in 2 3 hours pretty much everything you need to know to really detailed extent. So
Yeah.
if you have a friend, that's even better.
Yeah, I have well, I have the class. the local store I was telling you about. It's the go-to spot for everything reloading in the Las Vegas Valley. But my friend who reloads as his full-time job for two different companies, I'm probably just gonna have him come over and just give me a basic rundown on everything.
Oh
But
yeah,
I'm also
that'd be great.
interested in taking that class. It's a 10-hour class at that store, and
Hmm.
it's a really small class, like you mentioned. I think it only is allowed for 10 people, but it's 150 and it 10 hours, and they'll basically show me the ins and outs and hopefully prevent me from doing anything that could be dangerous or just not a good thing to do in general. So
Right, yeah, I definitely have a lot of experience to share with you and everything and tips, stuff that you
yeah.
really can't learn unless you're like in person.
And I feel like every reloader has kind of their own kind of way of doing things. I know we all drive cars slightly different. We all shoot guns slightly different. So with reloading, I'm sure there's slightly different ways that we all do things as well.
Oh yeah, I'm still learning all kinds of tips from the old timers and everything, giving you tips and everything like that,
Yep.
and stuff that's been around forever, but that's not in the book. So it's great to get that, oral, um, learning from those people.
Awesome. So I guess in conclusion, is there any last minute tips you would like to throw out there for someone um, getting into reloading? Any basic stuff that any we should look out for or anything we should know?
Pretty much just go slow starting out. Don't rush yourself, and then speed will come in time. And make sure you're buying the right press. I mean, it is a big investment, so find out what your shooting needs are and what you're going to need as far as reloading. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, there's a forum called bryanenos.com, which is really a lot of competition shooters hang out there. And if you're going to buy a Dillon press, I believe they have a thread there that is called "Which Dillon is right for you." And I think Dillon actually puts the same ad out, but it pretty much it goes through and it lists all the benefits of each press and like based on your shooting needs what you'll need. So if you're looking at Dillon, you can check that out. And there's all kinds of videos on YouTube with different presses and stuff like that. So that's pretty much all I can recommend as far as that. So pretty much wraps up the reloading portion of the chat, I guess. You got anything you want to add?
No, that's about it. I learned a lot. I think we gave a lot of good info for people like me that wanna um, are getting into reloading or just have thought about it in the past, and maybe this will um, be that motivating factor that'll just push them over the edge and make them start reloading.
Right, like I said, the benefits are, under 21, you can't get pistol ammo. That's the best way to do it. All you have to be, the only thing age restricted for reloading is powder and primers. That's it. You just gotta be 18 to buy those, and that's it. Everything else is you can be 12 years old and you can buy a Dillon 550. So all that's good. And then as far as shooting cost, it brings the cost down, and then your consistency and producing higher quality ammo is another benefit. And then another benefit as well is that anytime there's any kind of and the political environment is not good for the gun industry and the ammo is hard to find, you can keep shooting and load your own ammo. So that's pretty much all I got to add for reloading. But is that it for you, Jacob?
Yeah, it seems like there's lots of pros. I guess only con, I guess, if you have a busy lifestyle or you don't want to commit any time to reloading, might be the time it takes. But I find, like I said earlier, I find it an enjoyable hobby to get into.
Right.
Um, the one question I didn't hit on earlier, and I just want to see, is what are you producing like as far as ammo rounds per hour or whatnot? What are you able to put out with your 550?
That's a good point. When I first got it, like within a few days, I timed myself, and this was actually when the cases weren't deprimed, so I wasn't running a sizing die, so I didn't have as much resistance on the press, if that makes any sense. I mean, it still was the same amount of strokes, whatever, and rotations, but I could run. I did 100 rounds in 12 minutes, and that was like real time reloading. It wasn't a perfect run of 100 rounds. Like I had to stop for a couple times just for a few seconds to set a bullet up straight or put a case on the right way. So pretty
So
much, so pretty
five
much
hundred.
now I run about 100 rounds for 15 minutes. I can do 100 rounds
I see. So
if I really
you're
want to
looking
go
at
fast.
anywhere between like 400 rounds an hour,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is
400 or 500 rounds an hour, and that's without a case feeder. You put a case feeder on there, you might be able to bump up to 600 or maybe a little bit faster. I don't know. There's you can actually find that information on the Dillon's website. They have all of the how fast you can load. It'll usually say on
and
the
that
press
means
description.
that's awesome for someone like me. 400 rounds in an hour. You could sit down on a Friday night for 2 hours, load up 800 rounds, and you know,
Exactly, be
go
good
shoot
for
Saturday
a
and you're good to
while.
go.
That's pretty much how I do it. I usually load about once a month or so, and even then I don't load that much. So I'll load like 200 or 300 rounds, and then by the time the next match comes around, I'll load some more or whatever. It
So
just
you do
depends.
it rather than like every Friday night or not, you just sit down and do a big batch, is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, I try to, yeah. Usually the only limiting factor for me right now is my bullets, because sometimes I don't have the time to cast a lot. So, usually try to cast a lot of bullets at one time and code them and everything, then I have them ready to go. And as long as I have all the components, I can load a good bit. So,
Cool. Well, I think that was a great chat. We got a lot of good info out there.
yep. So that pretty much concludes the reloading. There are a couple things I want to hit on tonight, guys. Regarding current legislation right now in the gun world. There are two bills specifically. There's one bill here in Georgia, uh, House Bill number 544. It's 544. What it is, it's going to allow campus carry. Right now, it's in the second reading in the House, so it's just started. The status is real new. So I really want everybody out there to support that. I'm going to be pushing it a lot. Going to be contacting representatives, sending emails. I mean, it really makes a difference. So get out there and do that if you don't mind for Georgia. I'd really appreciate it. Maybe I'll get to carry my senior year in college. Who knows? And the other bill, obviously, that I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. If you haven't, it is by Representative Jim Sensenbrenner. I think I said that right. And he is proposing a bill to dissolve the ATF, which has some good things and bad things. Obviously, just dissolving it and delegating the power to another agency isn't going to make some of the stuff go away, or all of it go away, all the unconstitutional laws disappear, but it would void some stuff like the NFA and things like that, because a lot of those were created under the ATF and by their authority. So it would help, or at least open the door to getting rid of a lot of those restrictions on all the gun owners. So definitely check that out and support it. I'm not sure the actual bill number of that bill. I can't find it on the article I'm looking at here. But yeah, that's the guy, Representative Jim Sensenbrenner, and he's putting forth the bill to dissolve the ATF. So that's pretty exciting. We actually just had the M855 ban. They tried to ban it, and I think that's actually a good in a way, because it gave us the chance to get the momentum to go on the offensive and fight back and gain some ground. So hopefully we'll do that if everybody will just take action and do your part. So that's pretty much all I want to add as far as legislation goes, all that kind of stuff. Just support, your local carrier organizations. GeorgiaCarrier.org is what I have here in state Georgia. Support NRA, all that stuff. As far as social media goes right now, check out gunchannels.com. That's where usually we have this chats running through, and you can. It's pretty much social media for gun owners. It's like a Facebook for guns, but I guess our motto is for shooters by shooters, and it's firearms focused media. And we have a lot of cool stuff going on over there. We're growing pretty fast, and definitely check it out. You can they have a free account, so you have paid accounts, so whatever your different strokes for different folks. So check that out. I'm also on Instagram on my personal YouTube account, Ballistic Expansion. So check me out on my Instagram, my YouTube. That's pretty much all I'm doing right now. That and then the gun channels, obviously. So that's pretty much all I wanted to add. And Jacob, are you good? Or anything else you want to say?
I guess I'll throw my Instagram out there. It's at Stay Zeroed, so STAYZEROED. And that's where you'll see a lot of the pictures that I post. It's all gun stuff for the most part. I might throw a picture of my dog or a car in there or whatnot, but
Mm-hmm.
it's 99% is gun stuff. So you'll see like the 17L I picked up or the Remington 700 and stuff I'm doing and cool stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff out there. But other than that, I hope you guys get the campus carry. Nevada isn't so gun friendly, and it's getting less and less gun friendly as it is. So I hope other states just get their rights. So
Right.
that's
Hopefully that'll
exciting
lead
to
the way,
see.
and eventually we'll see it on a national level. So,
Exactly. But other than that, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll catch you next time, every Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and take care.